Welcome to Holdback Rack Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? What number are we, Jana?
36.
Yay!
It's your turn. Yay!
Happy birthday,
Mr. President.
My dog just strolled in during the intro.
That's all right. I just added a little, rain sound in the back.
I had to edit the entire Game of Thrones conversation because it starts with the dog ruining the audio.
Cool.
So even though it was interesting, there was no way to take the dog and then me calling her, this is a not safe for work podcast, by the way, a bitch, and then, going on a tirade where I, dragged the chair around the office. I had to take the whole thing out because it didn't make any sense if I just, we just started off with some random, and I was like, fuck. Yeah, one of these days I'll have a Patreon and it'll just be, the raw, fucking, unedited.
It's so good. It's so good raw, but it's also so much better after she edits it. We sound so succinct and intelligent and like we have our shit together. It's beautiful.
Yeah, if there's a Patreon one day, you guys can have that.
I think we'll have the hardcore fans that'll like the uncut. Uncut, baby. That's on my bucket list too.
Did you watch Shane Kelley's latest video?
I sure did.
What do you think about Next Level Displays?
Next Level Display is the displays I wanted. They are the most thought out, efficient, well done displays in the industry, in my opinion. I would love to have a whole set, a set of 4 displays eventually. That's the goal, especially if I'm going to keep doing shows. I think they look great. I'm not into the crazy colors.
No? You wouldn't have teal or something?
I might do teal, but
fun.
I'm not into the lime green or the orange or whatever, or I might just do black because it might just be distracting. I love it. I love them. I'm super jealous still because, every week he just gives us a reason to fly out to his place and bump him off,
Oh, man. Shane Kelley, Small Town Exotics. Check him out on YouTube, Instagram, and anywhere you want to bump somebody off.
Right. And he still likes us, even though we're plotting to kill him, and is the sponsor to our show.
Thanks, buddy.
You didn't give your opinion of next-level displays. They were what you were looking at, too, right?
Yeah, they're very nice. They're too expensive. They're too expensive.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I know why they're expensive. It's because they're nice. So it's one of those cost-benefit analysis things where you're I don't remember. I think it's $800 for the one with the thermostat in it and $600 for the ones without the thermostat in it that could be plugged into it.
That seems right.
Or $900 or something like that.
It was a year ago when I looked into it, so COVID may have drove that up.
Yeah. So that was fine for what it is.
Initial investments.
Yeah.
Initial investment's hard.
I've spent probably $2,000 just going to the first show. So if I had bought Next Level to stick a corn snake in, that would have been sort of silly, right? But eventually, sure, sounds great. I would have blue, obviously, acrylic dividers. Didn't want to do a correction. Jessica's wrong, as usual. So sorry.
What? You're never wrong. That can't be true.
I'm wrong all the time, almost daily. It turns out Sanzinidae, which has been bumped up to full family status, so that's Madagascar tree and ground boas, are not XY sex chromosomes. They are ZW, so they would make male parthenogens. I did not mention that because the papers I was working off of were predated the sort of split off of Sanzinidae, and that is a correction.
I have no idea what you just said, but I'm sure it's correct. Good job.
So Dumeral's boas, Madagascar tree boas, Madagascar ground boas. You know those kinds of snakes?
Yes, I do. So those are ZW, and the parthenogens are male.
Yes. So
okay.
they used to be in boa day with boas because they have live birth.
So we used to think they were XY.
Yes. So
Okay,
when I
cool.
talked about it last week, I implied that all boas were XY and would have female parthenogens. That is incorrect. I have made a mistake. But what's interesting there is like, even though they like a dumeral looks an awful lot like a boa, they are extremely far apart, right? They're like sister taxa, but they're never going to hybridize ever under any circumstance. Ever. People will get on the internet and be like, yeah, I'm going to breed my dumerals to my imperator. That's like saying I'm going to breed my dumerals to my ball python. It's almost that far apart. Not quite.
Interesting. Okay.
Moving on.
Wait, can I kick you now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of a little slow in the uptake and needs more caffeine. It's hot in Washington, everybody. I know this is going to sound like whining, but it's 92 degrees. And Washington does not come with air conditioning.
Do you have air conditioning in your house?
I have a heat pump, but my ex installed it, and it was broken last summer, and then he said he fixed it, but I don't think he really fixed it because it doesn't seem to be doing anything. So no.
No. Do you have like a little
No.
window unit?
I do, but it's not in, and I can't lift it up into the window, so.
Shit. Jana needs a man.
I need some man strength.
All right.
Lifting AC units into windows for blowjobs.
Yeah. I also had to bring out the AC units. Obviously, we have central in the house. I don't know if that's obvious or not. There's nothing that anybody would know that would imply that would be obvious. But I have to AC the snake building because it gets too hot. So I sure fucking did because it was 92. And that's too much for any little snaky to tolerate.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was doing something because I feel like last summer when it got this hot, my house was like 100 and it's only like 84 right now. So it's got to be doing something, but it's not like efficient. It's been running all day. It's not 100 in my house. Some people's houses are at 100. I guess my ex's apartment when he had the kids yesterday got up to 100.
He doesn't have AC either?
No, he doesn't even have a fan. Not even a single fan. And so they were all dying.
Ring, ring, ring. Global warming is calling.
Yeah, get a fan or a window unit. That's what I told him. Yeah, so we're all dying up here, and I'm sure all y'all from the south are laughing your butts off at us, but it's hot and air conditioning just ain't around. I need to go buy one of those
The rolly ones?
rolly ones,
Yeah.
not the window ones.
Those work too. I have some of those.
Do you have any updates on the sitch, or are we not talking about
I
it?
don't know. What was I update last week?
We had a midweek update to me, but you didn't update them.
I was saying, so we lost, the buyer pulled out, so we're out of contract. I don't think we said this on the podcast. I think we talked about it.
We talked about it
Yeah.
privately.
And then we dropped the price of the house $10,000 just to see if we could get anybody for like that week. We had a showing, but no offers. And so today, Chris and I were like, do we want to carry 2 locations, like a rental down there and here? And the answer is no. So I'm like, fuck it, go all in. So we put it up, very low.
How much? How many?
435,000. Does anybody
Wait,
want
what
to
was
buy?
it listed at last time?
It started at 495, which was supported by comps. And
Right.
then
Yeah.
whatever, but it doesn't matter anymore because interest rates are too high. So we dropped down 10,000 twice to 475, and we're like, okay, what is going to get people to buy it? Like, it doesn't
down
matter. Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. Who cares? The house sucks. We're moving. The money doesn't matter. And I think anybody who's selling a house in this market has to look at the interest rates and realize that people's buying power is going from 3 to 6%. It's like $100,000 sort of locked off. Yeah. Whatever. Just need to
big
pay
ask.
the mortgage and move. Come buy my house.
So when was
Thank
that?
you. We've dropped prices today. Whatever. Jessica problems. Not that important. That's all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just not important. Okay.
Not important. Jana, what is our topic today?
The secrets of ball python eggs. Dun,
Is that,
dun,
is
dun.
that a dumb name or what? I've been trying to think of like the dummiest, clickbaitiest, idiot YouTube title for like podcast
You
names.
nailed it. Nailed
Right.
it.
That will
Yeah.
trick anybody anytime. So if you're here because of that title, you've already been tricked. Congratulations.
We gotcha.
The long con has come to fruition.
Well, I think the long con is being played on Shane Kelley.
I think he likes it though. It's
I
fine.
think he
It's
does.
fine.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think he
yeah.
likes this a little.
All
It's
right.
fine.
Thanks,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for being a loyal listener. Really appreciate it. First, talking about ball python eggs, I like to focus on the mom first because I think that when we get eggs, a lot of breeders and people on YouTube, the mom's kind of like the afterthought. Like you're like, yes, Christmas, I got my present. But I think that in order for me to respect myself, I feel like I need to focus on the mom a little bit and be like, I don't know, zen with the earth and thank her for her offering to me or something. I like to focus on her at first and then take care of the eggs. And most people actually do it probably the opposite. They just chuck her in like a box, like a waiting box or something. But I like to make sure she goes right into a bath. I like to do a drop of betadine just in case they just need some sterilization or anything. I don't know. It just makes me feel better. It's completely not needed, and nobody else I know does that, but it makes me feel better. And then I wash her down with a drop of Blue Dawn. Is that what you do?
I do wash with. I use apple scented Dawn, but it doesn't matter.
Ooh. Ooh, it's like a little spa
Oh,
experience. I gotta
yeah.
up my game.
I just like the way it smells. I want to eat it so bad, but I don't eat it because
yeah.
I'm trying to be normal. Yeah, but yeah, just something to take off the scent of the eggs from her belly,
Right.
primarily.
Correct. Before you put them in the bath, I totally forgot. You want to check them to make sure that they got all the eggs out before you do all this. I like to do a full clean with 100% fresh substrate. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I don't necessarily do it right away, though. I don't know if this matters. I guess I shit on the mom. I will take care of the eggs, and I might clean her the next day or later that day. But I don't take her out of her bin and just put her somewhere random.
How soon after laying do you offer a first meal?
I offer the next time adults are fed. So there's no time frame. So if adults are fed on Saturday or something and she laid on Friday, I'll offer her on Saturday. If it's 5 days apart, I don't like give her special feeding treatment. I just slot her into the who's eating this week sort of group.
So before I got on the cash feeding rotation of Jessica Land,
Woo!
the land of good and plenty where you're not stressed about feed night, I used to offer after 48 hours. And usually the first meal after, I've since changed in like the last 3 months, but usually I'd offer a live ASF as the first meal after, as kind of like, here's your Thanksgiving dinner. Here you go. But now that I do feeding just kind of cash and, every 7 to 14-ish days. And if you're a frozen thought eater and you choose not to eat, I'm not going to chuck you alive. And I'm just like real casual about it. So I kind of do the same thing you do where I just the next time it's feeding. If they don't want a frozen thawed and they just laid, I will chuck in a live because I like to get that first feed out of the way and make sure that they get back on food.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good test of like, did she hurt herself internally or whatever? Like, did she twist an oviduct and now she feels bad? Like, even if all the eggs came out, if she'll eat and pass a stool, just like a human woman, eat and pass a stool.
Then you're like, you're good.
Yeah, you probably are internally okay-ish. Like, you're guessing for sure, but I don't stress about it hardly at all. Like, let me just put it this way. Like, I've had females not go on back on food for the full 60 days they could be incubating, hypothetically, brooding their clutch, go back on food after that 60 days, even though they were washed and everything else, go on to lay a clutch of eggs anyway. And I've had females go back on food immediately.
That don't lay the next year
Anyway. So getting them to eat is good, but it's not a guarantee.
Actually means nothing is what you're trying to say. We don't know anything and it all means nothing.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. It's okay that they're eating. A female that comes back on food gains weight back to sort of a pre-egg laying weight sooner. But if she chooses not to eat, I'm not that stressed out about it. It's very natural for them. I don't like to blast them with big meals during that time because they wouldn't be eating normally anyway. Sort of small meals, sort of coming up. Infrequent meals. They're okay.
Yeah, I definitely am not like, here's a medium rat.
Right after not eating for like the previous 4 or 5 months.
Suck.
Hopefully you
Suck
digest
with that
that.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing's twisted in there. Here comes a medium rat.
Yeah, you want to. They've already been fasting. Apparently, we're under attack. I don't know if you can hear the airplanes flying extremely low, the helicopters.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely
Can
heard
you hear it?
something.
It's a fucking like there's like a Chinook squadron or something at JBLM, and they do like. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, I love story time.
Oh my god! So my brother used to live here, and he liked smoking weed and a little mushrooms for fun, whatever. Nobody cares, right? But I think he had like
Bad batch.
a bad batch. So one day he told me the helicopters were coming to get him because they're doing like night stuff, and he's like, I swear to God, they like came down low over the back pasture and were like lasering him, and he was like calling for the dog, and he's like hiding in the house, and he tells me this the next day, and I'm like, nobody lasered you. You were just having a moment because there was a helicopter outside and you were feeling upset, and it took a little too much or it was bad. So what is the moral of the story? Chinook helicopters are loud and they seem scary, especially when on psychedelic substances. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. This is how we get abduction stories.
Right. So you repeat the washing if they don't eat still, or do you just let them ride?
I'm in a cash lifestyle now, but before, when I was like super hardcore about it, about a month after they lay, I would give them another bath and probably redo their bin. And that always worked. Like they always ate after that. But now I'm like, I just let it ride. I'm like, whatever. You wouldn't have ate for 60 days anyway. You're probably fine. I mean, obviously, if they weren't eating for a long period of time, I would think about a hide or, there's problem solving that you do. But now I don't get stressed about it, like you said, for at least 8 weeks.
Yeah, this is the cash lifestyle is the best lifestyle to me.
Yeah, and I never have female that's gone. Their babies are coming out of the eggs and they're still not eating. I have not experienced that yet. I feel like it's all fine. It's all going fine.
Yeah, me too. Most of them, even if they're sort of slow starting, they just like, wherever my babies are, fuck them. By like 40 days. Even if they're still trying to get their water bowl, but most of them give up on that within a week or two. Women. Can't trust them.
Yep.
All right.
Well, some of them are just like, these things came out of me, take them away.
They don't even pull them together in a very good pile. Yeah.
No. Yeah. They're like, I'm not wrapping that shit. You take care of it.
I know. That's God bless
favorite.
them. Yeah.
So number 2 would be pulling the eggs. Normally I get a weight of the egg, but my scale is packed somewhere in my show crap. So Jana no longer cares about weighing anything. It's been very freeing to live the carefree lifestyle.
Nice.
So like my last 5 clutches, there are no weights on that clutch card. Separate, candle, mark, fill out a clutch card. Do you want to go over what's on your clutch card? Do you have clutch cards?
I don't have clutch cards. I put sire, dam, and due date. I don't care.
Fancy.
Yeah.
No, you don't care.
So I have locks on like a different piece of paper that's like associated with the mom's tub. So if the sire I think it is not the sire's, like she retained sperm, I can go back to either the physical paper on her tub or the digital record in my computer. But I don't have employees or whatever. I don't need to put a lot of information on my clutch card. I know what's going on.
It makes me feel important.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it to like systematize what you're doing.
Feel self-important, like I'm fancy, like JKR. Just a little self-indulged, professional. But I like them. My clutch cards have like clutch number, the year, ID number, and mine say Dame. Would you like to weigh in on why that's wrong?
It should be Dam. We don't need to go into it. Episode 31 or something. I complain about it.
Yes. So I have Dame, and it should be Dam, FYI. And then I have a spot for 2 sires, last season sires, of relay shed, when they're due, the actual date laid, number of eggs, slugs, eggs weight, dams weight, total weight. That kind of just gives me an idea of where the female was sitting pre-lay, which I like to have for my records, but I haven't been weighing shit for nothing. Anyway, you don't do weight, so that wouldn't matter to you at all. I write when they're due and then how many hatched out of the eggs. So like I can keep track
So do you
if
like
there was dead ones or whatever.
transpose that information from the clutch card to some sort of digital record keeping, or just keep clutch cards? Let's just explain that the audio quality for Jana has shifted wildly, but it still sounds pretty good. So, chin up, Buttercup.
Chin up, Buttercup. My internet's bad, and we're now using my phone because it's going to do its own thing with the internet, I guess. Okay. We were talking about clutch cards. I don't think it was that important. We can move on. And can we just say again that it's hot as balls?
I mean, you can go on your porch or something. A little bird action never hurt anybody.
Little birdie action.
Well, it's better than dying of heat exhaustion, I'm pretty sure.
That's true. Mm-hmm. So if I sound slow and bored, it's actually just heat stroke. It's so funny. It's like, I'm sure that all the people from the South are just like, oh my gosh, whiners. It's 92. Get over yourselves right now.
Well, you gotta get used to it. Like, I used to live in somewhere hot every summer. You just have to, your body just, dies a little bit inside and it, gets ready for it. So if you're used to 50 to 60 constantly, you're, running hot or whatever.
Right. So I just want to put it into, perspective for those who don't live here. The day before it was 90, it was 60 and raining. And so they put up an advisory of, yes, I know it's going to be nice this weekend, but please don't go swimming or you'll all die of heat exhaustion and sunstroke.
Oh my God. Somebody did die already.
There was so many, people.
No, they died. On Saturday, somebody died.
No, I know. I'm saying the water is so cold and the air is so hot and we're so unused to the heat that, okay, you can hear my pond in the background. Is that too loud? I can turn it off.
No, I actually can't hear it at all.
Well, if you hear water running, that's not me peeing. That's my pond.
Oh, I can hear it now. Yeah, it is Jana peeing, actually. This is cool. Let's get.
So I think we're on that level now. Everybody, our 10 listeners, they can hear me.
I love it. All right, let's keep this show rolling.
Oh, yeah, okay. So put it on your dumb clutch card if you have one. If you don't, you're probably smarter than me. Then I use 6-quart bins. I have no holes in my bins. Do you have holes in your bins?
I do not, although I don't think a couple small holes makes a material difference. Either way, you could have one or two small ones or not. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, none of this matters at all. I don't even know why we're talking about it, but this is what I do. 6-quart bin, no holes, perlite. I just throw a whole bunch of water in there. I don't mix it till it clumps or whatever, because I use a light diffuser on top of it so the eggs are not touching the perlite. So it's just drowning perlite, and then cling wrap on top.
Do you mean press and seal, or do you literally mean cling wrap?
I mean press and seal.
Okay. You could have meant cling wrap. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I could. I'm saying the wrong word, but I know what I mean. There are so many different methods to set up your egg box. If you're already doing a method and it's working great for you, keep doing it. Literally doesn't matter if your eggs are hatching.
Yes, I think the point is there's a lot of ways to bake a ball python cake, but all of them make a pretty good cake. So it's largely fine as long as you have success.
So do you use light diffuser, trays, none of the above?
I do basically what you do. The substrate underneath doesn't matter. I've used cocoa, I've used perlite, I've used vermiculite, I've used water, just water, sponges. Because if it's off the bottom, literally doesn't matter. It just needs to be 100% humidity above it.
And non-toxic.
Not going to mold.
What are your thoughts on press and seal?
You only need press and seal if the tubs you choose would leak too much air otherwise, which is sort of vague. But if you have a gasket style lid, then you don't need press and seal. If you have the shittiest Sterilite 6 quarts that have the loosey goose old used whore edges that barely tamp down.
Probably shouldn't even bother with putting it on. You should just toss all the
Right.
press and seal.
I keep the lids on so that when they pip and I take the press and seal off, there's just something to keep the babies from just immediately bolting.
Yes.
But those things are so loose, like I have to move corn snakes to a different style of tub. Because a corn snake would just be like, bye, bitches. I gotta go. I'm gonna sneak out of this little loose ass lip. Yeah, any of those are fine. Doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I think I'll eventually invest in the gasket with the clamps, press and seal. But for now, I use the cheapy $2 6 quarts, and it's working fine.
Yeah, I think Ziploc stopped making those they were 9 quart. They didn't make a 6 quart version, but they made a 9 quart. They stopped making that size 2 years ago.
With the gasket?
Yeah, they make gaskets that are bigger, but not the smallest one that would be the most normal for a ball python clutch, which is still bigger than 6 quarts. I think it's a 10 quart or a 9 quart.
Wait, did you say if you use the diffuser?
I do use a diffuser, but I have also not used a diffuser. It just doesn't matter. I also have easy hatch trays, and I hate them.
Easy hatch trays? What'd you think about those?
I hate them.
Which ones are the diagonal ones? Are those the dragon hatch?
Dragon, yeah. I would probably hate those too. To me, the easy hatch trays require a bigger tub than light diffuser. They take up too much vertical height in the tub. Okay. So if they're kind of tall eggs, or you put too much substrate, you could use a light diffuser and the eggs wouldn't touch the press and seal. But if you used an easy hatch, you'd have to take out substrate just to be able to stick it in there so the eggs don't touch the press and seal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I have them, but they would be better in a bigger tub, like a 10 quart or a 9 quart. So if you had an incubator that was big enough to accommodate that, that would be a better choice.
The 6 quart fit perfect in mine. Like I can fit 5 and then stack them too high on one shelf, and I wouldn't be able to fit that many in.
Right, anything bigger. Right.
In anything bigger, yeah. So that's the eggs. If you have questions, feel free to hit up the harem group on Facebook and drop it underneath the link to this episode. Okay, incubator. I do mine 88 degrees, well, between 88 and 89, because if there's like a little bit of a heat spike, then you're still in the safe range.
Mm-hmm. I think 88 is largely the correct temperature with a little bit of variance around it.
I do the water jugs, the bottom of the incubator, in case like power goes out or anything to help keep it a consistent temperature. Do you do water jug in your incubator?
I just don't think it's important enough to take up space.
Mine's really freaking big, so I can take up space.
It's fine as like a thermal regulator. And
then I don't move bins around. So like once it's on a shelf, it's there for the 60 days because I have a really large incubator, and so you don't want to be moving that to the top shelf. Like you don't want to be like rotating it like you're at the grocery store. You just want to leave that shit where it is.
Why do you say that?
The top of my incubator could be like half a degree different, and I just feel better if I leave them on the same shelf.
Do you know who rotates his eggs? Justin Kabilka.
Does he?
Yeah, like through the incubator. Like they start on one shelf and they like conveyor belt down to where they pulls them from being in a done position.
But he has a whole room, and so the room is probably a pretty steady temperature. No, probably not actually.
Yeah, it's probably worse. Probably more variable.
Interesting.
Yeah, I move clutches. I don't like to like expose them to unnecessary light or touching, but I will definitely move them around the incubator and rotate them back and forth to get like the part that's hitting the flex watt warm. Because you know how the babies that are closer to it, if they stay in that same position, they'll hatch first. So I will spin them 2 or 3 times a incubation cycle and move racks, move positions.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never done that.
I don't think you have to at all.
Extra paranoid over here.
I just don't think it hurts in any way also. And I'm mostly just trying to even out within the clutch hatching times.
Do you have any kind of backup for if the power goes out on your incubator?
No. And I can go into why later on, but I think a power failure is a non-issue for ball python eggs.
Really? And why do you think that?
Because if they get cold, nothing happens.
So if the temperature drops, it doesn't kill the eggs?
No. They're fine. I'm talking not freezing. Don't freeze them. If you put them in the freezer,
they're dead.
That's bad. Don't do that. But I mean, like, if your power goes out and it drops to room temperature for 24 hours, totally fine. Not all of them, but many of the Texas clutches, incubators, once their generators or whatever ran out of gas, fine. It's heat that kills things, scrambles them. Dropping down to 70 degrees or room temperature or whatever, it's actually probably quite normal in Africa. Because if you look at the overnight temperatures in Ghana, they're in the low 70s every night during the rainy season. And like right now.
That's true.
So under the ground, we have some fun facts down there. She's insulating them, but she doesn't shiver. Ball pythons do not shiver. They do not contribute any heat. Only insulation properties. So she can't change the temperature of the eggs. So wild ball python eggs probably regularly experience some amount of dips into the 70s. And ball pythons seem to be making it okay in Africa. I would get a generator to run an AC unit so this whole snake house doesn't catch on fire. Like, it's so hot. That's why I would have a generator. Like, if you have power outage in the summer, my building gets way too hot. So that's why I would have it. Not to make it warm in the winter necessarily, but you could use it for that.
Yeah, I have a battery backup thing that can run it for, I think we had a power outage once for like 12 hours and it ran it just fine without.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to have that, but I would, like, that's low freak out for me. High freak out.
It's getting too hot and they're all dead.
Yeah.
That's fair. Hatching. So we get to talk about all Jana's hatching mistakes recently.
They're not mistakes. They're learning opportunities.
Learning opportunities. So I say here that I cut day 55 or if there's a pip, but I recently had a clutch, my highway clutch, and I thought it was day 55 and I cut it. And then I had not just one, but 2 die from a clutch of 7. And so I went back and like remathed and looked at the date and stuff. I cut on day 50.
Lord. Oh, Lord.
Oh,
Lord.
Totally my fault. I normally enter in 60 days from hatch into my little app that tells me.
You don't just scream at Siri from across the room, "Hey Siri, what's 60 days from today?" And just let her. I
usually do, so I have no idea what the app I was.
Siri, stop listening.
And so,
she heard me. Sorry.
She heard you. That's real funny. It's like, well, Jessica. I don't know what I did, but I looked back because 2 babies died, and I was like, something ain't right. And it was day 50 because I normally cut like if it's like 5 days left, and so that's what I did. But I had entered in 55 instead of 60, and so I cut 10 days early. Don't cut 10 days early. That's too early. Don't cut if there's no pips. That's too early. So that was a hard lesson to learn because I lost 2 important babies to me. The 2 highways in my clutch.
Oh no.
Died. And so that sucked. Anybody telling you that, oh, it's totally fine to cut at day 50 or day 52, that'll be fine. Don't do it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
Right. And that person might be incubating at 91 or something crazy, like really riding the line. So like maybe theirs are cool at 52, but you have to like triangulate between temperature and day.
Yeah, normally mine are totally fine at 55, and I've never had an issue before, but this last one, it was a rough go. So don't be like Jana. Day 55, if there's a pip. If there's no pip, just wait for the pips. I like to cut and then take the light diffuser out because I'm paranoid that they're going to get like stuck in it or something. It probably doesn't matter, but that's what I do. And then once the babies come out, I put them on a damp paper towel, toss out the perlite. I just don't like babies covered in perlite. But I do not wash the babies. We have discussed this in multiple episodes. They don't need washed. They're fine.
Yeah, it's very weird that people wash them. It's overwhelmingly men who wash babies. I don't know if this is a gender bias thing or not. We're like, oh, they're dirty. No, they're fine.
Yeah, if they're on damp paper towels and they have a few little chunks of perlite on them,
they're fine.
It'll come off. It'll come off on the towel. It'll be fine. So I don't flick off their perlite. I don't rinse them in the sink. I don't do anything like that. I just toss them on wet paper towels, and then they go back in the incubator. And like every day or two, I'll take them out and put fresh paper towels in until they all shed out. And then they go in my hatchling rack on paper towels. Is that what you do?
I don't put them on paper towels in the hatchling rack.
What do you put them on?
Just cocoa.
Oh, you go straight to cocoa.
Yeah, and sometimes I go straight to cocoa in a hatchling rack. Like they might do 2 or 3 days of paper towels, and then once they're clean and in shed, they might go in in the incubator with a water bowl and like a hide. So they're like getting used to the idea of what's going to happen. I don't do the Justin trick where he's like, first I start them on something that they don't like as much and then switch them to cocoa to make the ones that don't want to eat feed. I don't know. My like upgrade for a ball python that's being picky to start is I give them a hide. They go from cocoa to hide. You know, that's their extra security feature. It's fine either way. But paper towel's fine. Paper towel just like a pain in the dick, you know? They go pee-pee one time. You need to go clean it.
Yeah, I do what Justin does. And I find that if I have ones that aren't eating well, that does actually help to switch them to cocoa. I usually immediately get them to eat afterwards.
What I don't understand about those, like, why not just start them on cocoa? Like, I heard his reason, but I'm saying most snakes like to be on cocoa and prefer cocoa. So
you just mean they're going to eat better anyway.
Yes. So I don't need to go paper towel to cocoa and then add a hide. It's 99% of them eat on cocoa. And then if somebody is super small or super shy, they will get a hide too. Like if they were a twin or, you know, a boob egg baby. Because the whole cage is big compared to them.
Yeah, well, right now I have everybody in my hatchling rack on paper towels. Everything else in my room is on cocoa, but I have everybody on paper towels just because I ran out of cocoa and I was just like, whatever. So now everybody just is on paper towels. But
yeah, running out of cocoa is also a completely valid reason to do not cocoa because cocoa is expensive and fuck.
They don't care.
Right.
It doesn't matter. The hatchlings don't need it, but you can if they're not eating, and I find that does help. But literally, whatever you're doing, if it's working, keep doing it. None of this is law or fact or the only truth there is.
There's like 30 ways to breed a ball python, and they're all just fine.
Yep. All right. So now Jessica is going to hit you with some scientific factoids. So buckle up.
I was trying to think of a way to like jazz up this conversation slightly because it's a little bit like, you know.
So boring.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. But a lot of people listening have ball python eggs and know how to set them up the way that they already want to. So do they care that much? No, probably not. So
it was one of the ones requested by listeners.
Yeah, and there are some people who listen who haven't bred at all yet, and this will hopefully help them. Good. But I was like, I'm gonna go look for the literature, see if I can find some little fun facts. So this is ball python fun facts for the day. I guess, I don't know.
Jessica's Science Corner.
Science Corner. So we already sort of went over this a little bit, but the thermal conditions where ball pythons are extremely stable. Nighttime lows are in the low 70s, daytime highs are in the mid 90s, but ball pythons live, for the most part, in rodent or tortoise burrows for the most part of their life. They do move from burrow to burrow, but they don't want to, and they don't like it. So they want to live in a burrow. So that space is very stable temperature-wise. Female ball pythons do not do shivering to increase the temperature of their brood. Her purpose, almost completely, and this is borne out in literature, is to maintain the humidity of the eggs. That's basically all her job is. She might do some guarding, but how unsafe are they underground? You know, in a burrow somewhere. Her most primary purpose is to keep the humidity up by like covering them as much as possible and maybe urinating a little bit to help. That's her only job. So when you're doing artificial incubation, if you're keeping the humidity up, you are fulfilling the brooding female's primary role. Good job. Congratulations. Without using a female. There's a couple of papers that I thought were interesting that I'll lay some fun facts from. Aubret et al. In 2002, the mean clutch size for 138 wild-caught ball pythons was 7.7, but the pre-egg laying weight was 1944. So that means these females were around 1,200 grams after laying. Do you think that's a small ball python adult female, Jana?
No, I feel like that's fine. I feel like some of our ball pythons in the industry are too fat or too overfed. I feel like I have girls that are pre-lay about 2,000 grams and they lay healthy between 5 and 8 clutches.
I feel like it's small.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is like the mean is smaller than the mean in my own collection.
Which would be
I don't know. I would have to. I'm just like guessing, right?
guess. Yeah, just throw out a guess.
I would guess that most of my females that are mature, so more than 3 years old, are 2,500 or more grams.
After laying or when before pre-lay?
Normal weight. I'm talking about pre-laying weight. These were 2,000 grams before laying, these females. So
And yours
if mine
are
are
about 500
yeah, they probably lose 700 grams on a clutch. These ones were losing 500 grams on a clutch. This is just probably a byproduct of like females in captivity have
Better access to food.
better access to food. So they will grow to a larger potential, even if they weren't necessarily like power fed to fuck all.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, for sure.
But these wild females at this smaller body size are still laying, on average, almost 8 eggs a clutch. So
That's awesome.
Isn't that interesting? The sort of clutch distribution for number of eggs was not a normal distribution. 95% of them were at least 5 eggs. So there's like the biological bias is for at least 5 eggs, not a couple and then a bunch of big ones. They were not normally distributed, the clutch number. I thought that was really interesting. It just means that the egg number in a clutch is very strongly controlled, not by food intake or maternal size, but by some sort of other genetic factor.
Okay.
So you could smash. Obviously, bigger females seem to sometimes lay more eggs. Number. But then some bigger females just lay bigger eggs. Right?
I agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
some you have like big like 3 or 4K females and they lay 5 or 6 huge eggs that are like double the size of someone who's half their size, but they don't. I haven't seen a correlation with size and number of eggs at all.
Right. So size correlates to like clutch mass, but not
Correct.
clutch number. So total clutch mass. In general, if you wanted to have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 egg clutches, you need a large female, but you also need a female who has the genetics to provide a large number of eggs instead of bigger eggs.
That's interesting. So if you have a female that lays a lot of eggs, have you been breeding enough that you can see if those daughters lay a lot of eggs as well?
I haven't. Next year we'll see that, I think. Because my highest egg-laying female that I have daughters from laid 13 or something her first year. And I think 2 of them were slugs, so I only had 11. But
That's awesome.
right, so her daughters,
They were 2020s, right?
yes, whenever they breed maybe this year, we'll see if their dad gave them a high egg number gene set too.
Cool.
We need it
Yeah,
from both
yeah.
sides, but
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to see.
I'm sure it is heritable. Like, if you ever listen to TSK talk about stuff, this is the only reason to weigh things, in my opinion, is to get, like, census data of a lineage. TSK, even though everyone thinks calico and sugar are the same, they do not think that they're the same because their sugar line was not as fecund as their calico line. Like, they had less eggs, the eggs were smaller, and they were just less productive. Females bred less often. Their sugar line.
Interesting.
But their calico line did not do that. But they thought the sugar ones had better expression, so they kept them around. But when sort of pressed, I don't know what interview it was on, they were like, just because of the fecundity issue, I would pick calico all day, every day. I'm like, okay, interesting. So they
Good to
think
know.
that they're different, but people have mixed the names up so bad. If you went and bought a random calico or sugar, how do you know it was actually a calico or sugar based on TSK's sort of lineage info at this point?
You don't, because
You
people
don't.
just change it because they're like, oh, nobody wants a sugar. So, and for a while, sugar was more sought after, and so people were like, oh, I'm just going to call my calico a sugar.
Yes.
So it's so interspersed that You don't
Right.
know.
And we don't know if that was a gene thing or a lineage thing. So that line just was a little less fecund. In general, a lot of these traits are highly heritable. So if you are a person who wants to make money, you would be looking at these traits and picking based on them.
Holding back daughters that produce really well. I know that it works that way with my ASFs. Like if I have a colony that's dropping big litters every time and they're taking really good care of them and they're just really productive, I make sure that I hold back their daughters and make a new colony out of that because they do such a good job. And so like the same thing can be applied. I know we talked about this for age of breeding, whether that's genetic. So if the mom lays when she's 2 or 2.5, and keeping those daughters, they're more likely to lay when they're 2.5, and seeing if that's a heritable trait. But it's an interesting thought to think of like number of eggs as well as a heritable trait.
And there's like an argument there for balancing it. Like you want, sometimes you have a large, let me just put it this way, like in corn snakes, I would prefer less bigger eggs because the babies are bigger and more robust when they come out, for sure.
Okay.
If you were to start breeding ball pythons for 16 egg clutches, would that cause some sort of diminishing returns in terms of whether or not those babies would want to start readily? So there's a balancing act there. But if you think you want higher clutch numbers, do not hold back females from 6 egg clutch layers, even though they're big,
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Try something else. At least go for mean, which would be 8 eggs. Even for a relatively small adult. Mummy. Yeah, that stuff was from Aubret et al. 2002. Clutch size, manipulation, hatchling success, and offspring phenotype in ball pythons. So they were adding and subtracting eggs to not wild, but like ranched female ball pythons to see if they could successfully cover more eggs. And if you gave a female too many extra eggs, she couldn't cover them. So there was losses due to desiccation, basically. So that's why the clutch number is so important. She has to be able to cover them almost perfectly for most of the brooding period.
The females that are more likely to do that, like 8 clutch, are the ones that are, their daughters are surviving to the next generation.
Right, that's like
sense,
8.
Because that's what their bodies can cover.
Yeah, 8 is the right size for a female that's about 2,000 grams, if they're laid correctly, to cover completely and get the most babies to hatch from there. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It's good paper.
Yeah, I had a female that just laid, and she kicked out one. She was real full. She looked like she had 1,000,000 eggs in her, and she was like a 2,500 gram female. Maybe 28. Anyway, she looked real big, real full, and she kicked out an egg and then didn't lay the rest for like 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I've heard of that happening, like anecdotally, but that was my first experience with it because she was just like, nope, not going to make it. Take luck, little egg, because the rest of them don't fit. And so anyway, it was like day 22 when she kicked out that first egg. So it's just interesting how like her body was like, oh, I think this is too many. She ended up with 9 total. So she did hit that 8 that were laid at the proper time. And so I find that really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. The way they come out of the wild is the way that has been selected to be the best balancing act between all of these properties.
Correct. Yeah.
But in the captivity, if we're going to breed them for larger clutch number, then they cannot maternally incubate that many eggs, potentially. They just, if they have lots of little eggs, they might not be able to beehive them up correctly. So only artificial incubation could allow that sort of situation to happen. So don't reintroduce your ball pythons into Africa. You've caused genetic drift. Sorry. Besides the fact that it's a pesto. Ignore that part. Energy expenditure for parental care may be trivial for brooding pythons. Python Regis, Aubret et al. 2005. Females did not lose a significant additional weight during their brooding period. It was approximately, depending on the female, the weight of an additional egg, because they're not shivering and they're not doing much of anything. They're just holding the eggs. Yeah. That's why I'm all like, if they don't want to eat during that 60 days, It doesn't matter because they weren't supposed to eat.
Right.
Know?
They're
And
conditioned to not eat,
they're
actually.
conditioned to not eat, and they're not supposed to be losing a ton of weight. If they are losing a ton of weight, then something hurt is inside of them. Something's wrong. I'm not that worried about it. They're supposed to do that. They're fine, and they do okay. There's a paper that says that maternally incubated eggs make bigger babies than artificially incubated eggs, and I would like to say that this paper is stupid. The paper is, Why Do Female Ball Pythons, Python Regis, Coil So Tightly Around Their Eggs? Albrecht et al., 2009. And it's stupid because they didn't maintain 100% humidity in the artificially incubated eggs. They just sort of guessed. They put some like wet mulch on it and they're like, hopefully it's enough. So when the babies crawled out, part of their yolk was desiccated, and so they just sort of left. They bailed. And so of course they were smaller. So what I'm saying is, right now, there's no evidence that a maternally incubated ball python baby has any advantage over a correctly artificially incubated ball python baby. Correctly. If someone wants to do some more work, let me know. But this paper is not evidence of anything. That's all. Moving away from ball pythons, but trying to like make some sort of links. If you take away the female and you are artificially incubating the babies, there is evidence in other groups that way too high temperatures and way too low temperatures that are consistent will cause issues. Usually the issues are just some sort of fitness decline, like in bull snakes or whatever, they didn't swim as well as animals that were incubated at the correct temperature. And that means like way low. So like, 10 degrees lower than what would be normal or 5 degrees higher than what would be normal. And then also, weirdly, locomotor performance is enhanced in snakes with variable incubation temps. But is this relevant to ball pythons? I don't have any papers for that. So should we be letting our artificial incubators have a night drop for ball pythons? I don't know. I think largely ball pythons hatch and are fine. But I do not think that a ball python in Africa does not experience a temperature drop at night, even while being maternally incubated in a hole in Africa. We'll wait for Dave Kaufman to prove it one way or the other.
So excited. Has he said when?
Oh, no, not yet. He did have another video, I didn't watch it yet, about
I haven't watched
something. I 100% agree that you need variable temps for colubrid incubation. They're okay at a stable 82, but they really do seem to do a little better if they have a little bit of, they go to 85 and they drop every night, up and down. So could a ball python do better if there was like a 4-degree spread, 84 to 88? Maybe, I don't know. Needs more papers.
We need more papers, and I'm not doing it till there's more papers.
It's definitely better in other kinds of animals. I don't know if it's needed in ball pythons, so is it necessary? But this would be a great master's thesis for somebody. That's why I'm like, no one needs to worry about their power going out in the summer and their ball python incubator temperature dropping into the 70s. You do not need to worry at all. I would not even blink for 1 second. I'd be like, that's fine. Nobody cares. Because they experience that in Africa all the time. The other thing that's weird is snake eggs communicate, and we have evidence for that in lots of species, but one of them is in natrix. So if you put younger natrix eggs, maybe like 10 days difference, in with older natrix eggs, the younger ones would figure out, probably based on heartbeat, that they were young, and will try to catch up with the other eggs that they're touching. Why is that, Jana?
I don't know. That's kind of neat, though.
Yeah, so they're trying to maybe like all exit the egg at the same time. So in like turtle eggs, it's pretty, not exit the egg, but exit the nest at the same time. So they all like leave relatively similarly. So if predators come, it's not a big deal. Someone will be like, hurry, we gotta speed up so we can all leave at the same time so we can swamp predator sort of pressure. That's a good thing to think of, but what we don't know is like, how else are they communicating? There's some sort of fluffy speculation about, are they communicating in other ways that would inform like future decisions about heterospecifics, conspecifics, and potential mates or competition for mates. There are some sort of colubrids that'll lay eggs in like multi-species groupings. Are they just like taking advantage of like predator swamping or that particular microhabitat for eggs? We don't really know exactly why. But because ball pythons do not do conspecific group nesting that often, because the mom is the one holding her brood, she doesn't like lay her eggs in a big pile with a bunch of other moms' eggs.
Right.
The only communication is between that mom and her eggs, and then between egg communication, potentially. So what are they saying to each other, Jana?
Don't die.
Or they're saying like, so there's a question of, if we took a mother away from her eggs, are we sort of lopping off some sort of information to the eggs?
Giving them. Okay.
I don't know. There's no information that I know of for ball pythons. So in the wild, usually those eggs would maybe not even make it because they wouldn't have enough humidity control factor. So when they find abandoned ball python nests, those babies are like, some of them are dead, some of them do hatch. Not all ball python nests are perfectly sort of taken care of. Sometimes moms give up and run away because they're just too busy. They're tired. They're over it. Or they get eaten by a different snake, or a predator comes, or like a fucking savannah monitor, whatever. So we don't know if you took the eggs away from mom and they were in a situation that they perceived that mom wasn't there, like they had low humidity, if they would, I don't know, like have like epigenetic changes that are like stress based, because they're like, oh no, my mom died. So that must mean there's a lot of predator pressure. So I should be real psycho and scared when I'm born. I'm literally speculating. It's not a fact. I've just made that up. But there could be things that we don't know about that we're doing when we pull a snake eggs from the mom and put them in a bin separate from the mom that we are interrupting. But largely, obviously, ball python babies are born and are fine. So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it does matter.
Yeah.
How
maybe,
do we know?
maybe. We don't know.
Yeah. I'm just saying eggs do talk to each other a little bit. And so we don't know what other things that we could learn in the future. Turning eggs. You know how everybody likes to pull eggs apart and then mark the embryo and turn it right side up? It's pretty normal. Pretty normal. That's probably fine. There's a paper, this is on Natrix eggs, not ball python eggs, but this is like one of the good papers for it. Eggs laid with the embryo on the bottom that weren't corrected did not change position within 24 hours and were definitely stuck in that position at 5 days. And the hatchling success was higher for embryos that were already at the top than at the bottom. And it was 92% versus 81%. So that's not like insanely huge difference, but it is a bit of a difference. So that would be like, okay, that's evidence for turning, right? Sort of.
Right.
And then, but there was a better sort of difference between ones that were turned upside down on purpose and left upright in terms of post-birth mortality. So if it might hatch, but they will randomly die sometimes later if they were turned on accident. So it was, the mortality for unturned ones was 4.5%, and the mortality for turned ones was 37%, which is a lot.
Whoa.
Yes.
So what you're saying is we could unintentionally kill something when we think we're putting it right side up.
If it was past the 24-hour window and it's fixed in a position and you turned it, then yes, you could kill it. But I think most people turn it within 24 hours.
Right.
Well,
because you're checking, well, I know I'm checking my females twice a day.
Yeah, well, my dumbass hasn't been checking as much recently because I've been busy. So I've been getting like more stuck clutches, so I cannot pull them apart. So my synthesis here is,
if you don't know how long it's been since they were laid, don't F with them.
Yes. So I've been doing like bigger, like cleaving the clumps together. Even if I can turn some of them, I try to. But I'm trying to like make them touch each other. I used to keep them separated because in case one went bad, you didn't want the mold to spread. But now I'm like, if the eggs are communicating and trying to sync up, maybe they would do a better job of fucking...
This totally sounds like sci-fi bullshit. I mean, I see that there are papers and stuff. I'm not saying exactly that, but it totally does sound like they're communicating. I don't know. It's just funny to me. Continue. Yes. If they're communicating, they need to be touching.
Yes. So I don't want the eggs... And the eggs might only be communicating with a mother based on like them feeling stressed because the humidity's not enough. So if they're in an incubator and the humidity's perfect, maybe they think their mother is there. Is that weird? I don't know. Maybe not. The eggs in the Natrix genus were communicating based on heartbeat. So they could hear each other's heartbeats and were trying to sync up. So I don't know what ball python eggs are doing. But I just try to touch them now. I'm not here to tell you what ball pythons do at all. But there probably is a difference in some property of the animal between, eggs totally split onto dragon hatch trays, never touching, eggs touching, and then eggs maybe touching the mom. I don't know. It's probably very small, though. A difference that effectively doesn't matter. So basically doing what Jana already talked about is totally fine. Also, just don't rip your eggs apart because they've been sitting for 24 hours and they're dry as fuck and they're really stuck together. Just incubate them as a clump. Don't flip them.
I agree with everything you just said.
Also, this is the last point and then we'll move on with our lives. People have been saying a lot that they think that incubation temperature affects gender. We just went over this. A whole episode about gender and whatever. The gender in ball pythons is determined by chromosome set. So it's at the time of conception.
They are not something you can incubate at a certain temperature to achieve more females or males. Yes, some reptiles you can do this, but you cannot do it for ball pythons. So those people who are claiming they have the magic number, they need to read a little bit more, please.
Yeah, these are otherwise smart adults, so I'm very confused. I think I mentioned in the notes, like, if you have like a lot of slugs, the slugs might be male, because it seems to me that a high slug clutch produces a high percent female, not because the temperature was high, but because the males seem to be weaker embryos. So that might be why you have a lot of females. Or maybe it's just like part of the statistical anomaly of, random selection, right? Next year, We'll have all males at the same temperature. So I would not put any credit or credence to any of that. And people should just move on to other things. The only thing I think about, how in horses they can pick the gender of their babies a little bit. Female horses,
no,
mares.
I did not know that.
And I don't really actually know how. I don't know if anybody else knows how either. But a mare that's gaining weight when she ovulates, like she's actively getting fatter, is more likely to produce a stallion than is statistically normal.
Interesting.
It's not a 50-50. She might do 57%. And this is true in other species too. So, and that's because if she has a lot of caloric excess and she's feeling really good, she's going to produce a lot of milk and have a good labor, so she will produce a very strong son. And since there's a lot of sexual bias in horses where one stallion breeds lots of mares, she can pass her genes to more offspring if she produces a successful stallion. But if she's losing weight when she ovulates, she's more likely to produce a filly. Not a lot less likely, but like 7-10% less likely. Because her body's like, well, I don't have enough extra reserves to make a really strong competitive son, but if I make a daughter, I can probably keep this one alive, and that will at least give me a chance to have, daughters that have daughters and sons, potentially, this year. So that sort of gamete selection in the female, we don't know how that happens, but gametes are weird, and they act in their own best interest, turns out. So could some sort of mechanism like that be happening in ball pythons? Maybe. We don't have any evidence for that, but that would be cool if it did. So that's how there could be some sort of selection for gender, not temperature. Unless like fucking Y gametes, die at a certain temperature faster than X gametes. That would make sense too. That's all. That's our dumb fucking egg talk.
Yeah. Sorry if you fell asleep. Cleaning your snake shit. Yeah.
Just really get in there, girls.
Just really get in there, and we'll try to be funny next time. Let's move on to news before Jana falls asleep.
Jana's falling asleep. Well, maybe we'll skip around a little bit and do some of this next week. How's that sound?
Okay, well, we definitely need to apologize a little bit. Well, I need to apologize a little bit. William Filipek, if you're still listening and have not thrown us in the garbage can, Last week's announcement of your interview being a total snooze fest was not a reflection of you guys. That was a reflection of my mental state of boredom. And if it makes you feel any better, I also told MJ he was boring. So I think that's a reflection on me, not a reflection on you. And I did go back and watch the entire thing. And there's a lot of good stuff in it, which we are going to discuss right now.
Okay, we don't have to go for all of it, but is there like standout points that you thought were interesting or that you disagree with? Or because it was 3 hours long?
Yeah, it was 3 hours long. I thought that the ball python industry having zero appreciation for the wild type, and his discussion on the wild type possibly being lost because it's been lost on other species was very interesting. Not many people give a crap about a normal ball python as breeders. In fact, some of us consider male normal ball pythons king snake food. Don't send me hate mails if that offended you. Just whatever. I mean, I love the wild type. I think it's beautiful. It was just interesting to hear somebody so passionate about preserving it when, from a business standpoint, we just kind of poo-poo the wild type. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, ball pythons are extremely unique in this regard to me. Boas, retics, corn snakes, snakes that are cheap, corn snakes. People have like worked on a normal ass corn snake to make it cooler, and or have locality corn snakes, and those are also $25. But like someone cares about it. But I don't know anybody that cares about a wild type ball python lineage enough to selectively breed it. It's a fair criticism.
It is a fair criticism, and it was absolutely true, and it resonated with me because I definitely have thought like, oh, who cares? But I do think at the very beginning of this ball python breeding journey, was very interested in the Volta lines. And I know there's lots of schools of thought and a lot of controversy of, oh, these are just like 30-year-old ball pythons that we're pulling out, and that's why they're so huge because they've been around forever, and that there actually isn't a gene for bigger. I mean, there's just lots of thought about it, but I definitely am intrigued by that line of wild type. It would be totally just like food for thought to explore that, because it's not like there isn't a market where you can be like, this is a 50% Volta. Nobody gives a fuck. But if I was going to mess around with line breeding a wild type, I think that that's what I would explore is the Voltas, because they're supposed to lay more and they get bigger. I do think that sometimes there are people who would like a bigger ball python. I mean, obviously they could just get a boa, but that fascinated me in the beginning, and it made me think about it when he talked about it. It made me think about remembering that I enjoyed that part, and I don't know, maybe it does need some room, even though it's going to value nothing. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I still feel like 90% since it's like fake snake money, you can make the market for the thing that you want to make, potentially.
Yeah, you can hype it if you have the right connections.
Yeah, like if you think you have a really cool normal ball python and you know it's a normal and you don't care, there's a universe out there where you can promote the shit out of it and make somebody pay you $50 instead of $25. But yeah, but I think it's worth thinking about. I think the problem with the ball python market, A, is that it needs money, and B, in 30 years or something, it'll be like this probably, because all of the morphs will have sort of equalized in price. So then where's the rarity if they're all equally the same? The rarity would be like what you've put into it work-wise to make a quality example.
Like what Ozzy's done with like his high intensity Orange Dream stuff. He's taken Orange Dream and whether it's a new gene or it's just a really awesome line bred extra-ness, I just think that there should be more room for the line breeding at better quality. I think that leads really well into his Desert Ghost cop-out thoughts, is that, he raised the point that Desert Ghost is for lazy people.
It sure
it's
is.
like the lazy man's recessive, because instead of line breeding and choosing quality over quantity, people are just like ramming genes in there and keeping back anything that has the correct heads, and they're not looking for quality in their offspring. So you can take the shittiest pastel you've ever seen and throw Desert Ghost on top of it, and it looks phenomenal. But how much better would it look if we took the time to first get a really good example of pastel?
Mm-hmm.
Is what he had posed. And I think that I largely agree with him on a fundamental level, but also not everyone has the luxury of picking the very best and only keeping the very best. How do we get around? How do we make the best of both worlds? Because if you're doing, say, 2 double het clutches in one season, and you say you have 4 females, do you just keep one that's really gorgeous and the best example, or do you keep all 4 because they're all 4 double hets? You know what I mean?
That's a good question. Maybe the answer should be to only keep the best.
And then do you like take that money and you buy somebody else's best? I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's different ways to obviously manage this. Like in boa world, even if you made double hets, like you can't keep the really gross, ugly ones. Like you can't even don't even bother. It would take so long to raise them up. Nobody would care. They're like 1/3 the price of nice ones, you know, because it takes a long time to fix them if they come out kind of brown and gross. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but I don't feel like we do that in the ball python world. Like I feel like a better example. Okay, so like Barnhart Black Pastel does command a higher price than just a regular black pastel, but in the majority of genes, I don't feel like
it matters
that it changes the price if it looks really good, or what looks really good to one person might look like dog shit to somebody else.
That is true, right?
Because like sometimes somebody's like, oh, that's the prettiest cinnamon I've ever seen. And I'm like, I wish it was black pastel.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
yeah, yes, it's obviously in the eye of the beholder. And even in the markets where they respect line breeding, there's different like opinions about whether or not that is worth it. And a lot of big feelings about the 1,700 flavors of fucking pastel and boas that are all probably related to Pastel Dream anyway. And then we have to give them different names. And for some reason, certain ones command a much higher price. But you get the exact same looking thing off of a fucking shelf somewhere just because it has a name attached to it. A different boas. It sort of causes its own set of complications and shit. There's good and bad here. But there is a question of like, just because she has the genes, does she need to be in your collection, or should you sell her to buy a better quality? Yeah, maybe sometimes, especially if it's like Blade. Or you get some sort of weird reduced thing that like springs up, and you're like, "Fuck!" It'd just be easier to get a different one than have to get rid of Blade somehow.
Mm-hmm. Blade's a sad gene, in my opinion.
I think if people have to listen to it, they should listen to it. Largely, his ideas that are interesting because he has training and experience in species that aren't ball pythons. Sort of being a only ball python breeder is myopic. Sorry, Jana. It's just hard to get like perspective from the other species and how those ones work if you don't ever keep them or talk to those people. So you would think that everything should be a triple het. Check it out. Jana does not hate John Fealy or William Filipek, by the way.
I do not, and I'm sorry that I was flippant and rude and disgraceful in general. That was a me thing, not a you thing. And I actually think that there was quite a lot of valuable discussion happening. I just was having trouble focusing.
All right, focus on this. GHI Mojave Stranger Clown. What do you think about it? Made by Ultimate Balls. They hit it a couple days ago. I'll put the picture on the Facebook group.
It's in the notes right now. Is
it too much? That's my question.
Stranger
is like softening in my heart because it's almost too strong.
It needs something else.
What about Spot Nose? It would look a lot like the Aussie Kraken.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
it up a little bit?
It definitely needs something, but it's delicious. But it's gonna look like crap in like 200 grams.
Yeah, I wonder what the Stranger Pompeii looks like right now. Like, I wonder if it's gotten, like, less saturated. There's something about Stranger that steals orangey red colors. Is that weird?
It's a little disappointing. But I feel like if we added something to this, it's almost so black that it's, like, blue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into it.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Definitely into it, but there definitely needs to be something else that's reactive to the dark that's gonna fight it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what can you put in it that's gonna
I think
just
I'm going with Bonos right now. Or
right, right,
maybe
right,
Cypress or
obviously.
something, yeah. Speaking of
Bottnose or
Cypress,
Cypress or Bongo or I mean even Yellow Belly.
yeah, Yellow Belly. Just to like punch up the color of the parts of the yellow pattern that remain. It is
Correct.
cool looking. I think
It's
it.
really, I mean, I would who would be sad about having that in their collection? Not a single person.
All right,
And
we
you wouldn't
talked.
even care if it was a girl or a boy. I mean, literally just like, yes, please.
Yeah, be powerful and useful forever. Good, great. I'm just always interested in how Stranger acts in combos. It's acting a very particular kind of way that I actually think is not always flattering to the combo. Sometimes it's just cool, darkening, but it doesn't necessarily like elevate it. It's not a 1+1 = 4 gene every time. Sometimes it's like a 1+1 = 2 gene. All right, let's talk about 1+1 = 4. Cypress Pompeii. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel about it. I
If
like it.
that's
I
what he
want
hit,
it.
there was some
I
debate.
want some more of it.
And you saw Ozzy's Cypress combos from the week before, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Those were also very sexy. I've been seeing a lot of really sexy things with Cypress. And I'm not gonna lie, I was on Morph Market checking out Cypress. It is a gene that I tried to buy and had a Nido positive come in and just have not managed to find the right one to pull into my collection. And it's gonna do big things. I just am really I heart Cypress hard right now. What do you think?
If his pictures are accurate, he said he was going to post a video and he did like a reel and it looked pretty good there too. I feel like that's my favorite Pompeii so far. Cypress Pompeii.
I see. I didn't see his reel. I need to look that up. Hold, please.
And this is JP Reptiles Canada, JP. There's some debate whether it was the Pompeii or almost all of the Pompeii, but the shape of the saddles look like black pastel to me, so I think that's what some people were like thinking might not be in there. I like Cypress a lot. Sometimes it's like a better. To me, it might be like the better enhancer, incomplete dominant, better than special. Like obviously, you still can't make a super, but it seems to add a lot of color and fun to all kinds of combos. So
Yes.
10 out of 10 would get a Cypress combo.
Do you have Cypress in your collection?
Not yet. I haven't even. I
Womp
haven't bought
womp.
anything since December, so I've been extremely good.
Oh my
I
gosh. I thought you
know.
bought stuff at the show. Oh, that was December. Duh.
Yeah, bought stuff for the show, and that was the last. That was the last time I spent money. No, that's not true. We should probably do like a mid-season update. I've spent $12,000 this year on snake stuff. Not even snakes. Snake stuff. Holy fuck.
With my number. It's pretty bad.
Is it 12? It's probably more than $12,000.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I got new hatchling racks, and I got a new ARS, and I got a clown pied. Yikes. I also, this is probably collection updates, so.
Yeah, we can do that. It's fine. Did you buy a Kiki yet?
I'm having such a hard time rationalizing $9,000 right now. As an unemployed, single college student, mother of three,
Yeah.
it feels really irresponsible. But also, I want to so bad. Derek DeMeyer has a banana genetic stripe clown for 9,000 in case no one else is reading my mind or my emails to Jessica. That is what we are discussing, and I have
Fucking
the
CIA's
option
probably.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could buy that right now, and then as I make the money back, put it back into my savings account. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling a little bit nauseous about it. Every time I go to write that email, I get physically ill. So I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm not doing that. And then I go through the tailspin of I've already invested this money into Clown Pied. Should I dump Clown Pied and pay for that? But I really want to do both. But then and if I buy a Kiki and I hit a genetic stripe enhancer, then I would have 3 double visuals. And that is good things for me. But then there's also like I have no clout or Rolodex. So if I invest more like $10,000 into a single snake, how long is it going to be before I see a return on that money? I don't know.
Especially a
So
2022 baby male. You know,
yeah,
he wouldn't. Maybe he
yeah,
could pick up the end of next year, but not.
probably not. That's where I am. Just tying myself into knots about it. But I mean, if you get physically ill when you're about to do something, that's your body trying to tell your mind that maybe it doesn't agree with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's totally okay to not do that. Like, who? Nobody's pressuring you. And
Nobody at all except for myself.
yeah, and like, you might do this show and do like a banging show or $7,000. I don't know how much inventory you're bringing. I don't know if you've
A lot.
gotten that far. Okay, so maybe you do like a great show. You'd be like, oh yeah, now I'm very comfortable buying one male for the 2024 season or whatever. But you need a male for this season, right? Or no?
I don't know. I'm still working through my breeding plans, and I had a male die. So,
Who died?
a highway male.
The leopard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was cleaning tubs this morning, and he was dead.
Was he
And
eaten?
no, he hasn't eaten in, I mean, not even that long, probably like 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, that's not that long.
And he hadn't really lost any weight or body condition. He didn't have an RI. Hadn't checked tubs since like Friday, and he was like real dead. So I didn't swab or anything because he was already like pretty gross. So
Yeah, if they've been sitting on the heat,
yeah, he was sitting
not
on the heat, and
helpful.
it was not a pretty. I don't know how the whole room didn't just smell, but once I opened his tub, it was graphic. I don't know. He was totally fine when I fed. He didn't eat, but he was totally fine, and so I have no idea. I have no idea what happened. There's that. That was a crappy morning.
So you need a
I have a
something super gravel
2020.
or highway.
I have a 2021 Phantom Highway pet pied.
Isn't that a male or a female?
It's male.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
have
Well,
one,
he exists.
but he was supposed to be like the leopard was supposed to be backing up the newbie male, or like giving the like chump locks for the newbie male. So that's frustrating because I didn't feel like I did anything wrong, and I still had a snake keel over, and that never feels good. And I really, really liked this snake. He made really cool babies, and it was crappy, but yeah, I need to go over my breeding plans for next year and figure out what I'm doing and figure out what I'm willing to put towards it. I think after the July show, I'll have a better understanding of where I'm sitting financially and what I can put towards it. But I don't feel good about promising that money and then not knowing how the show's going to go.
I mean, have you considered dropping highway gravel as even a project?
I have, yeah, I've looked into it and thought about selling the whole project because I have yellow bellies and ivories and highways and I had two males, but now I just have one. And it's worth quite a bit because those are all breedable females. I mean, it's a consideration. I really like highway though. Something's got to give somewhere, and I've got to just decide. And
I mean, you could keep
or
the best females or whatever and breed those to pies or clowns or your pie clown male and make highway clown pies instead or something,
yeah, well, see, what I want to do is produce more super gravels.
Sure.
So I would love to produce female super gravels with codoms that I could then throw Clown Pie to or Kiki to or like
What was the gender of your super gravel you hit?
male. And then the pastel super gravel, I believe is a super pastel super gravel is female.
Maybe just keep those two and just throw all the highways in the trash. No offense.
So I mean, like, yeah,
Because the male could go to you have some female clowns.
uh-huh.
Maybe that you don't need them, all of them, to go to the Kiki or whatever you get for him. And then you have the female to breed to someone later. And then that's enough. You sort of,
Yeah.
you would pause the whole project for the year because the male wouldn't be big enough and the female wouldn't be big enough. But you could sell almost everybody else. Maybe give an ivory to the clown pied or something. A female
Yeah, no,
ivory.
the ivories would stay and get tossed into double head projects. Because yellow belly, yes, do all the things. But yeah, I'd like to be making my own super gravels to hoard for all the double hets and triple hets and things, because I would like to see super gravel genetic stripe clown or highway genetic stripe clown, but really super gravel.
I mean, would it be more fun to sell all those and buy like a gravel clown, or have all those to make super gravels with, when you could take the gravel clown and make 100% gravels, 100% head clown with whatever clowns are, you know what I'm saying? It's just the upgrade strategy. Like, is it worth it this coming year to have all those females still going just to make some more super gravels? I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, it's all a food for thought, and there isn't a wrong answer or a right answer, and that's what makes it extra hard.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? What's your collection update thing?
So I had a female lay 5 slugs and a egg that looked fine but had no veins in it. And she was locked 2 or 3 times a while ago. And then I didn't want to use a backup male, but the male had stopped locking her for 3 times. But I kept trying. I was hoping he was doing it. And so from like 20 to 30, she had no locks, but she had good locks before that. So that was enough for her to slug out. Isn't that interesting?
Bummer.
Yeah, it's a sort of a thought experiment. If she had good locks.
Is the 20 to 30 locks the only one that matters?
In this case, yes. There was too much. Even though she could have stored sperm or whatever, she either chose not to store it from him or didn't store it correctly or whatever. She still tried to go. But I didn't back him up even though he wasn't locking, because I was hoping the first ones were enough. That was the like son to mother pairing to see if she was het ghost, which is a dumb thing to test, but I didn't have any other ghost males. So that's fine. It's not like a financial loss. It's just it's more interesting that 3 good locks don't mean anything necessarily. It's the ones at 20 and 30 that mean more than that.
It is really interesting, because you would think, I mean, I've had snakes lay 100% viable clutches with 2 locks.
Yes. But maybe those locks, maybe she didn't like the male she was with too. Or, you know, she was like, she let him lock, but she didn't. She was like, you're gross.
You smell. I don't want to hold on to your sperm. Bleh.
Yeah. And she was waiting for somebody better, but he was sort of goading her on. And so she went through the full process, tried to use probably stored sperm or whatever, and it was not good. And that was a male who was young, quote unquote, but he was 18 months old. So it wasn't like he had an age problem. He stopped locking towards the end of the season just because the season runs too long and I started too early. I didn't start when they were 15. I started in fucking September or something stupid, and locked them once a month until something, or 6 weeks or 8 weeks until something started going. And by then he'd run out of juice, even with one female. It was too much time for him in particular. So that's interesting. So my continued learning feeling is that I will never buy a single male of one genotype to be like the only one I rely on. Ugh.
Backup males is the key to long life and happiness.
So it doesn't have to be the exact same, but I should have been like, he's not locking, I'll throw in another whatever. He was het clown, pos het ghost, basically. And I think he is het ghost because he looks like he's fucking het ghost. So I should have thrown in at least another pos het clown, het clown, because he was 100% het clown. Just to be like, let's not worry about the ghost, let's just get a clutch. Even though it's worth literally nothing at this point. Because the locks that matter are the ones that are important. They can do it without it. They can do it with one lock. If they decide not to store sperm...
They can do it with, one lock from the year ago.
Yeah, if they decide not to store sperm for whatever reason, like mate preference or whatever, and you don't give them a second chance to pick somebody else when it's important to them, they will slug out. It's interesting lessons. Lessons learned. So I have another female who's supposed to be breeding her son, who's been slow to ovulate, like she's waiting. So I'm actually going to give her a different male now because she's slow to grow, because I think he's also stopped eating and stopped locking too. So even though I wanted to test if she was het puzzle or whatever the fuck, I don't have any other het puzzles. I don't have any het puzzles. So testing that is just going to have to wait, I guess. It's more important to have duplicate locks, backup males, choice for her, even if it's a second tier choice. I would never go buy a 2023 Kiki. Let me put it that way. I would go buy 2 clown 100% het G-stripe combo males just because I'm scared of what keeps happening. I mean, what if his pee-pee falls off and you're like, fuck.
Fuck, that's a $10,000 snake that they're not willing to breed, or it just keels over for no reason.
Yeah, like your little highway buddy. For no reason. And it's
literally no reason. Everything was, all the temps were right, all the humidity was right. He had fresh water. He hadn't lost any weight, but yes, he had been off food, but it hadn't even been 8 weeks. And I have males that go off food for like 4 months and are totally fine. And then there was no upper respiratory or saliva or anything weird. It was just, he was curled up in a little normal ball and dead.
Without like a necropsy, and it could have been anything, right? Could have been anything. But without a necropsy, you'll never know. And he was cooked, so a necropsy wouldn't have been very helpful.
Right, anyway. And I don't feel like it would have been a fair or a good example if I'd done it wouldn't have been a valid panel after at least 2 days being cooked on a 90-degree hot spot.
Right. No, it would not have. Yeah, so that's...
Which is disappointing, because I usually like to run a swab after that.
I mean, you could like swab the last females he bred just for chuckle fucks before you sell them or whatever.
Yeah, I might do that. Although one of them just laid, like 8 weeks ago, and she immediately started eating and was totally fine. I checked on her. I checked on all his girls just because I was like, what the fuck? And all of them are fine.
You didn't happen to check his hemipenes after anytime recently, I guess is my question.
I never did.
Okay. I've been looking at snakes' wieners recently.
You look at snakes' wieners a lot, not just recently.
Mm-hmm. This is true. Well, I've had boas die from, this is not during this collection, but previous collection, from dragging their junk around, retracting it back in, and having like substrate or something on it, and then it gets infected, and then like you have to like irrigate it and give them antibiotics, and they still die anyway, because it's like by the time you notice, it could be a lot. Ball pythons are easy to pop, but boas are not. And adults are harder than babies, but like you can do just like a junk check. So I've been doing junk checks on males that haven't been used, and males, like I told you about this, like post pairing, to see if they've actually locked or not, because they'll pull off the hemipene sheaths. Mm-hmm. And in males that I haven't been using and haven't been locking, they will like accumulate more than just hemipene sheath and a little jizz. It's like a whole, is this getting gross, coagulated tube of jizz.
They're making a little pearl down there.
Yes, they were really bearing down on it, trying to turn it into coal into diamonds. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but this doesn't seem great. They won't be infected, but I've sometimes seen like hemipenes fail to avert the full way because there's so much shit in their cloaca. So like if you clear it, you can like pop them a second time and get a full erection. I don't know how to... So those snakes did not have infected hemipenes, but they had a lot of material. So if your male was doing okay and was using, he shouldn't have had like his own personal build-up material, but it's possible maybe he got a piece of cocoa stuck on it and he was fine until he wasn't, because he actually had, so I don't know if his carcass is still around, if you wanted to like do some surgery and see if you could identify any mechanical injury to his junk.
Well, it's been in the 90-degree trash can all day.
All right, no, never mind.
And it was in the 90-degree heat, I'm assuming, for the full 48 hours.
Yeah, never mind. That's gross.
Yeah, there were bugs involved, and
yeah, there's actually like a really great paper about like a bacterial infection in a ball python colony that caused basically like tumors in snake genitalia that was mostly affecting the males. Actually, not the females would get it too, but it'd be so bad they couldn't avert their hemipenes correctly anymore, and so they couldn't do locks. And this was bacterial caused. So if the animals had had antibiotics soon enough, they wouldn't have necessarily formed those little tumors, pustules, growths. So maybe we should think more about penises, is what I'm saying, Jana. or hemipenes.
Maybe more about penises, but not maybe more about snake penises.
I mean, just in terms of like husbandry care. Do we
I know what
need
you
to
mean.
do junk checks?
I think that you do a lot more penis checks than anybody else in the whole hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's not discussed. Maybe we need to do a whole episode on penis.
Sold.
Because we've talked about like looking for mature peens, and we've talked about cleaning out peens junk, and we've talked about peens falling off. I feel like maybe there needs to be a whole let's put on our big girl panties and talk about all the peens.
This would be a great episode. I
really think this is a solid idea.
We'll do it for sure. I don't know if we want to do it next week or not. We can. There's no rules here. There's a lot of penis talk that would be interesting, potentially. All right, I think we did it.
Nobody messaged me a 5-star review.
Whoa.
I don't know if any of you messaged Jessica, but you weren't supposed to. So if you're listening and you have yet to go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star glowing review, shame on you. Yes, I'm shaming you now. Because, asking politely did not work, but shame on you. Go leave us a 5-star review. But really, if you want to and you like us, it really helps the algorithm and gets us out there so more people can enjoy our humor and our peens talk.
Peens.
And I apologize to anybody that made it this far for the shift in my audio. Doing online schooling has really tanked my internet, and it was struggling hard today.
I'll try to cobble it together pretty good.
Yeah, Jessica's going to fix it as best she can, but it might be a little brutal. So thanks for listening.
We talked about quality content-ish a little bit. Next week we have, I don't know what the topic is. It could be penises, and we could move on to something else and do penises, at the end of the summer. Summer fun. It's 4th of July. Ugh, America right now. That's it for me. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hot, sweaty titties.